Hey, welcome to edX World and another video in the IGCSE Economics series. In the last video, we studied about price elasticity of demand. So in today's video, we'll continue forward and study price elasticity of supply. If you watched the previous video, today's video will be very easy for you. In fact, I'll be going a little faster today. In the previous video, I explained every concept of price elasticity in detail. So I would suggest watch that video first and then come back to this video. It'll be better for you. You'll understand the concepts better. So in today's video, we will understand the meaning of price elasticity and how to calculate the price elasticity. We will see the types of elasticities like we did for PED, and finally the factors affecting the price elasticity of supply. And once a producer knows the factors that affect the price elasticity of supply, how can he use that information to improve the price elasticity of supply? So what do you mean by price elasticity of supply? Price elasticity of supply is the degree of responsiveness of change in quantity supplied to the changes in price of a product. See, the law of supply stated that the price and the quantity supplied moved in the same direction. They are directly related, but the law of supply doesn't speak about the quantum of change. The quantum of change is explained by price elasticity of supply. For a certain change in price, how much would be the change in quantity supplied? That is explained by price elasticity of supply. The quantity supplied could change by a greater proportion compared to changes in price, or it could change in lower proportions compared to changes in price. So when the quantity supplied changes in higher proportions, we say that the supply is elastic, highly elastic. Whereas if the quantity supplied changes in lower proportions, we say that the supply is inelastic, or PES is inelastic. Next, let's understand the calculation of value of PES. The formula would be percentage change in quantity supplied divided by the percentage change in price, and percentage change in quantity supplied is the change in quantity supplied divided by the original quantity multiplied by 100. You would get by how much percentage the quantity supplied has changed, and same way percentage change in price is change in price divided by original price multiplied by 100. Using these two values, we can get the value of PES. We have an example here. The price of the product was 150, and at that price the producer supplied 1000 units of a product. The price changed to 180 and the producer supplied 1100 units of that product. Calculate the value of PES. To calculate the value of PES, first we need to calculate the percentage change in quantity supplied, which will be the change in quantity, which is 100, divided by original quantity, which is 1000, multiplied by 100. So that gives us 10%. Same way, percentage change in price will be the change in price, which is 30, divided by original price 150, multiplied by 100. So that gives us 20%. Now the value of PES will be 10% divided by 20%, 0.5. If you understand one thing, the value of PED was always negative because the quantity demanded and price moved in opposite directions, but the quantity supplied and price move in the same direction, and hence the value of PES will always be positive. So here it is positive 0.5. Now moving on to the types of elasticities. The first one we have is perfectly inelastic supply. Means that no matter what the change in price is, there will be no change in quantity supplied. The quantity supplied is perfectly inelastic. You will not see any change. So if the original price is P and the original quantity is Q, even though the price changed from P to P1 or it changed from P to P2, you will see that there is no change in the quantity supplied. The quantity supplied at all these prices are still Q. So the graph for a perfectly inelastic supply will always be a vertical line. The meaning is obviously no change in quantity supplied for any change in price. The value of PES is 0. Why is it 0? Because if you see the formula, percentage change in quantity upon percentage change in price, and change in quantity is 0. So obviously the percentage change in quantity becomes 0 and the value of PES becomes 0. Then we have the inelastic supply. For a certain change in price, there will be a change in quantity supplied, but the quantum of change or the proportion of change will be lesser than that of the change in price. The graph that we have for an inelastic supply will be an upward sloping curve but a steeper line. So if you see, the original price is P and original quantity is Q. See the change from P to P1, the change in price, and compare that to the change in quantity. The change in price is much higher than the change in quantity, and same way, if the price increased from P to P2, see the change in quantity from Q to Q2, it is very less compared to the changes in price. So the meaning of inelastic supply is that for any given change in price, the change in quantity is much smaller, and the value of PES will obviously be less than 1. We've seen that in the previous example also. So the shape of the graph will be a steep upward sloping supply curve. Then we have the unit elastic supply, which is that for any change in price, the change in quantity supplied will be exactly the same. So for example, if the percentage change in price is 20%, there will be a 20% change in quantity supplied as well. The supply curve is an upward sloping line and it is 45 degrees to the origin. Compare the changes in price, the gap between the changes in price and the gap in the changes in quantity, you will see that there is a same proportion change in both price and quantity. And yes, the meaning will be same change in quantity supplied for any change in price. Value of PES is 1 and the shape is upward sloping curve, which is 45 degrees to the origin. And elastic supply next. So in elastic supply, for a certain change in price, the change in quantity supplied will be much greater than the change in price. The shape will be an upward sloping curve, but not a steep curve, but a flatter curve. See the change in price from P to P1 and then compare that to the change in quantity from Q to Q1. The change in quantity is much higher than the change in price, and same way for change in price from P to P2, the change in quantity from Q to Q2 is much higher. And the value of PS here will be more than 1 and the shape of the graph is flat upward sloping curve. And finally, we have the perfectly elastic supply, which means that for any change in price, for even a very small change in price, the supply becomes completely zero. It changes completely. So the shape of the graph will be a horizontal line. At price P, the quantity supplied is Q. If you change the price from P to P1 or from P to P2, the quantity supplied becomes zero. There is no quantity supplied at any other price. So meaning zero quantity supplied for even a slight change in price. Value of PES will be infinite. Okay, and the shape is a horizontal curve. So let's summarize all the types of elasticities. On the left we will have the lower elasticity and on the right we will have the higher elasticity. So on the extreme right we have perfectly elastic supply, PES is infinite, and on the extreme left we have perfectly inelastic supply, PES is 0. In the center we have unit elastic supply, PES is 1. And between the unit elastic and perfectly elastic supply we have elastic supply, PES is greater than 1. And between the perfectly inelastic supply and the unit elastic supply we have the inelastic supply where PES is less than 1. Next, we need to understand why is it that for some products or for some markets the elasticity is high, for some markets the elasticity is low. There are certain factors that affect the PES in a market. The first factor is the production capacity with the supplier or with all the suppliers in the market. See what happens when there is a sudden spike in price. As producers, we want to increase our supply, we want to increase the production and supply more quantity so that we can make more profit. But that is possible only if the producer has spare capacity. Then only he can react to any changes in price. So if the producers have spare capacity, you can say that the producers can be more responsive to changes in price and the supply will be elastic. But if the producers are already operating at full capacity means that if they have machinery installed for 10,000 units, they are already producing 10,000 units, they cannot increase their production, that's full capacity. In that case, even if the price increases and the producer wants to supply 15,000 units, it will not be possible because there are no resources left. Next, we have the inventory levels maintained by any producer or by any seller. Again, same concept. If the producer or the seller is maintaining high inventory levels, he is maintaining spare inventory levels, apart from what he needs to sell in his normal day, normal course of business. Then when there is a change in price, the supplier can quickly supply more inventory, more stock or more products to the market and make more profit. But if the inventory levels are already very low and basically the supplier is just maintaining enough to meet his daily sales, then you can say that he will not be very responsive to any changes in price in the market and the elasticity will be low. So inelastic supply if the inventory levels are low. The number of suppliers in the market. So this affects the market supply. So if the number of competitors in the market are high, for any change in market price, the overall market supply will be elastic because there will be many suppliers who would be reacting to that change in price. But if the number of suppliers are less, or if it's a monopoly, then for any change in price, one single supplier or a few suppliers will not be that much responsive to changes in price compared to a situation where the number of suppliers were high. So the market supply will be elastic if the number of suppliers are high, and it will be inelastic if the number of suppliers are low. And then we have the time horizon. If the producer knows that the change in price or an increase in price is going to be sustained for a longer term, then the producer will be elastic. He will respond to that by increasing his supply. But if the increase in price is only temporary, it's in the short run, the producer may not want to increase his capacity, may not want to increase his expenditure, so he will remain inelastic and will not react to the increase in price to that extent. So in the long run, the supply will be elastic, whereas in the short run, supply will be inelastic. So how can a supplier or a producer increase the price elasticity of supply? Firstly, by having spare capacity, not a lot of spare capacity, but at least a little bit of spare capacity, so that if the supplier wants to suddenly cater to more demand in the market or to supply more in the market, it is possible for the producer. The supplier or the producer should try to maintain some extra levels of inventory so that again he is more responsive to any changes in market conditions. And apart from this, the producer can also ensure higher mobility for the employees, higher occupational mobility by training them, because if the employees are mobile, the producer can quickly shift them from one product to the other product, or from one production activity to the other production activity, whichever is more profitable for the producer, and that way the producer can be more responsive to the changes in market conditions. I hope the concept of price elasticity of supply was clear. I hope you've understood everything. If you enjoyed the video, please like the video, please share the video with your friends. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Also press the bell icon. Many more videos will be uploaded on economics and other subjects as well. So you should be notified whenever a video is uploaded. Thank you for being there. I'll see you soon.